Let's conclude this section of getting started with Spark SQL with a simple exercise. This is quite straightforward exercise. You just have to copy paste the commands which I have used earlier to make sure you are comfortable with Spark SQL. Let's go through the high level tasks, and then I will emphasize on couple of things which are related to CCA 175 exam. The high level tasks are nothing but launching Spark SQL. Then you have to create the database and exit. Make sure you don't use the database keyword or control argument to attach to a database when you launch the Spark SQL for the first time. Make sure you create the database with your OS username prefix if you are using our labs. If you are using your own environment, or if you are using the environment provided by your company, using the OS username as prefix is not mandatory. But if you are using our labs, make sure you create databases with the OS username like this, and then underscore, and then whatever database you want to create. In this case, I have given the example using training as OS username. Then you just exit and launch connecting to your database which is created using -- database. You just copy paste this command to create the table, list the tables, describe the table, and review the metadata. Also try to use up arrow and go back in the history and try to rerun the commands. Try to explore if not exists if you just want to make sure you are comfortable with the CLI. Also try to run commands such as the current database to actually review which database you are attached to. Now if you are giving CCA 175 exam, Spark SQL might not be available for you. You might not be able to run spark-SQL command to launch the Spark SQL CLI. You might have to use programming languages such as Scala, PySpark, etc., or Python with Spark, etc. And for that, you have to use this command called as spark2-shell for Scala and PySpark2 for Python-based Spark CLI. And also, you will not be able to run queries directly, such as use, select, etc. You might have to embed it into spark.sql function, and then you have to call that spark.sql function, and then you have to perform the database operations. Let me demonstrate quickly. To launch Spark with Scala, you just copy paste this command. Again, the last line is not required if you are using your own environment, but if you are using our labs, you have to use this last line. $user will be replaced with the OS user using which you are connected to the labs. If you are using your own environment, or even for our labs, you just have to connect to the gateway node of the cluster first. I'm already in the gateway node. Then we should be able to paste this command. It will launch the Spark CLI with Scala as programming language. And then it will also create an object called a Spark. Using that Spark object, we should be able to invoke SQL function by passing the query or command as string. Now Spark with Scala is launched. There is an object called a Spark that is already available. We can say spark.sql. SQL is nothing but a function. And then we should be able to say select current database. And if you just run it, it will return data frame. It will not show the results. You can see here it is throwing some exception. I have to use circular brackets here. It is not showing the actual database name. It is actually showing the data type of the object that is created because of this spark.sql function. To see the results in these scenarios, you just have to use show, and you should be able to see the database. If you want to connect to a database, you just have to use command and then give the database name. In my case, it is IT Varsity Retail. In your case, you should use whatever database you have created. The command is just use IT Varsity Retail. There is no select. For this, show is not required because we are just connecting to the database. We don't display anything at the time, and hence we can remove this show and hit enter, and then you are connected to the database. Now you can run select current database once again, and you should be able to see the database name. If you want to list the tables, show tables is the command which you can use, and you should be able to list the tables. And we want to see the results, and hence we have to use show, otherwise it will not display the results. So if I remove show here, it will again show the data type of this object, and also the column names that will be there as part of this object. To see the actual results, we have to use show, and we should be able to see the database name, table name, and whether the table is temporary or not. If you want to write a multi-line command or query, you can use triple strings in Scala. So we can say something like this. We can delete this entire part, and then we should be able to enter multi-line query. So in this case, let's say I want to get count from orders. I can say select count of 1 from orders, and then I should be able to say show. It will run that query and it will show the results. So wherever you are expecting to see the output, you just have to use show at the end. Show also takes a couple of arguments such as number of records and also whether you want to display the complete part of the data. For that you have to say false and you should be able to see the results. I will demonstrate those aspects when we get into the queries. For now, just launch the Spark shell and try to run Spark SQL queries so that you are comfortable in interacting with Spark Metastore tables, even by using CLIs such as Spark 2-shell as well as PySpark 2 in our case. In your case, it could be Spark-shell and PySpark. Now let me come out of this. This is how you can quit. You can also launch using PySpark. Once PySpark is launched using this command, everything else is same except that when we actually invoke functions such as show, we have to use circle brackets in PySpark. In Scala, it is not mandatory, but with Python, it is mandatory, and hence we have to use those circle brackets. Other than that, most of these commands will work. Let me copy paste to demonstrate that. So spark.sql, select current database. If you paste this, it will just return the data type of the object. It is nothing but data frame. To see the results, you have to use show. If you just use show without circular brackets at the end, it will not work. It is also showing some type with respect to that method. To actually invoke the method, you have to use circular brackets like this, and then you should be able to see the database name. Also, you can actually use command to switch to the database. I thought I have used use command. Let me see where that use command is. Yeah, this is where I have used use command. So let me use this use command. Now let me use the show tables command. Once again, if you don't use show, it will not display the results. It will just return the data type. To display the results, you have to use show with the circular brackets if you are using Python as programming language, and you can see the results. You can run multi-line query with the triple quotes the way we have seen with Scala. Once again, because show doesn't have circular brackets, it did not work. So let me hit up arrow and then go back to the history and then run the show with the circular brackets, and we should be able to see the results. So this is how you should be able to interact with the Spark Metastore tables using the programming languages of your choice such as Scala or Python. If you are giving CCA 175 exam, it is very important for you to practice this and be comfortable, because Spark SQL will not be provided to you as part of the certification exam. You might have to live with Spark Shell or PySpark, and hence make sure you practice using Spark Shell or PySpark. In all the subsequent sections, I will primarily focus on Jupyter Hub or Spark SQL CLI. If you are using Scala or Python as programming languages to prepare for CCA 175, make sure you run these using either Spark Shell or PySpark so that you get enough practice to interact with Spark Metastore and run queries or commands against it.